Well, welcome. This is the tutorial for sculpting one of my cuddle bodies. You could purchase a cuddle body that is open and doesn't have any sculpting so that you can fill it yourself and then you can sculpt it later if you choose to. Or you can order one from me and have it sculpted. I'm going to be offering this free on all my new bodies here as an option. And here's one that was sculpted and is going out soon. And it has magnets in the palms of the hands and a magnet in the head for the bow and a magnetic pacifier. It is for an adult collector. Here's my earlier cuddle body, and I designed these a little bit narrower to fit inside a standard Build-A-Bear. And I sculpted the wrists and the elbows, and I'm just showing side by side how the other one is just a little bit thicker on the arms. It still fits in a Build-A-Bear, but my slender body fits in a lot easier and out. But anyway, my dolls also can fit certain preemie sleepers, and I just went a little bit thicker with the body just to fill out the sleeper a little bit more. So when you choose a body from me, I will let you know the ones that I have pre-made, whether it's the slender or the chunkier body. And you can also ask for some sculpting if you're having me pre-fill it and you want a few sculpted limbs. I'm only sculpting in the limbs, around the feet, the knees, the elbow, and the wrists area. And this is going to be easy for you to follow along and do yourself. We're going to use this one here. And you want some really strong thread. This is like an upholstery thread. You want like an upholstery thread that's really strong. You don't want to use regular thread when you're sculpting. You really want a strong thread. And you want a really long length. So that's quite long, and I'm not going to double this thread because this thread is very strong. I just want, it's almost like I've got 36 inches in length. And we're going to start on the back side of the ankle area, and we're going to go up right above where a heel would be. There's a closer view. And you want kind of a tail of your thread. You're going to knot it and leave a little bit of length there to come back and tie knots on, and then we're going to hide that thread at the very end. So you're going through the back of the heel, and I'm showing my other one that I did. I'm doing this one slightly differently. There's no right and wrong way of doing this. Just kind of like wherever you want the little tucks, you just are sculpting. So you go in through the back, out through the front, and then back down through the back again, and you pull it a little tight. And you want to knot it. Knot it a couple times. And if you wanted to go back through again, you can. You can go through the sides if you want some indentation on the sides, if you want your ankle to be a little bit that way, you can. Okay, you're going to follow the seam with your stitch, and you can keep it hidden, just tiny little go in through the, follow the stitch line. And this actually is making your stitches even more secure, even though I double stitched and used my serger on the inside. There's no raw edges, so there is some thickness that you're going along and following. Here I stop at the back of the knee, and I'm just going through it a couple times just to make a little indentation. Maybe 2 or 3 times I go through there, and now I'm going to go up and to the top of the knee or right just below it. You can decide where you want it. And just make a little stitch and go all the way back through. I'm going to do this twice. You bend your knee a little to see how you like it. So this I'm going like right underneath the kneecap area. Just as if you would look at your own knees and you have like a little indentation right underneath your kneecap. Kind of like a little dimple. You're putting 2 little dimples, one on each side on the front. Come all the way back through, and you're going to knot it in the back, and we're going to continue along the seam line up the back of the thigh. I'm just showing how it's more like a bent leg. Now these play doll cuddle bodies, I only have polyfill in the feet, and then I add some polyplastic pellets in the lower leg, and then right at the knee up to the top of the thigh is polyfill again. And I do that with the limbs, all the limbs. And the torso area has got a white stocking of polyplastic pellets that are enclosed, and then I surround that with polyfill. And my fabric is pre-washed and pre-shrunk, so if you did need to do some, like say, hand washing, I really believe you could leave what's in the limbs in there and hand wash and thoroughly let dry. But I would take whatever's in the torso area out, because that's much thicker. It would be harder for the torso area to dry. And I don't suggest throwing your body in the washer or dryer, because the fabric would fade over time. This is a really soft flannel, and just to keep it looking new and fresh, I would only hand wash it. One of the other reasons why I was debating on whether or not to sculpt and have the limbs closed was so that you could completely remove everything out of the body if you wanted to, and fill it the way you want to, even though I filled it a certain way. That's why in the beginning I was going to do this type of sculpting, but I was like debating, should I or shouldn't I? And it's like, I really like it, and so I wanted to start doing it, and I wanted to teach you how to do it if you like this. So I'm following the seam line, starting at the right at the hip there. We're going to go all the way up the torso and the side seam. You're going to make knots every now and then. It'll be hidden, you won't even see it. You're going to follow the seam line, but keep your stitches really tiny, and they can be bigger on the inside but tiny on the outside. So you're making a tiny little stitch And then you can go in about 1/4 of an inch up at a time. The bigger stitch won't be seen because it's on the inside. And your little stitch is going to be on the outside, really tiny. And then go up. You can go 1/2 inch if you want to. Every now and then you're going to make a little knot. And see, my thread is still nice and long, and I'm making a knot right here. And making the knots every now and then, that's just a precaution of if by chance your thread isn't strong enough and it did break over time or age, you wouldn't have to restitch or resculpt the entire areas. You would just like restitch the little spot or area that needed a little stitching. Now I'm going to follow all along the right there at the shoulder, going all the way up the seam line. Tiny little stitches. This keeps the polyfill separated right there along the seam, and it makes the arm just drop more relaxed, especially if it was laying on its side. I guess you could think of a Raggedy Ann doll, the way a Raggedy Ann doll is made. Make a couple knots here before you keep on going, and you're going to travel up to the inside elbow. And you're staying right up along the seam line. Tiny little stitches on the outside, bigger stitches on the inside. We're getting closer to being done here. Now, before you decide if you're going to do this sculpting, at least on the arms, before you close that up at the shoulder area, and you want to put a magnet inside the hand, you're going to have to do that before you start doing all the stitching. I had to like stop for a second there because my finger that I use kind of as a thimble, and I can't find my thimble. It was hurting me a little, so I got some tape. This is like bandage tape, and I'm patting my finger that I use as a thimble. My needles kind of poke me a little bit, and my finger was tender there, and I didn't want to cause my finger to bleed or anything. And poke yourself enough times with the back side of that needle, you're gonna bleed, and you don't want to get that on your fabric. So just as a precaution, I gave myself a padded finger there. I also ran out of thread there, so I'm gonna start with a new longer piece here, and I'm pulling a tail out so that I have something to tie onto and make a nice little knot with that little tail. When we get done towards the end, all these little tails that I have, like when we started, we're going to hide those. So There, I've secured and tied a knot onto there, and now we're going to add some stitches going up on the back side of, if you feel your funny bone area, you have kind of a couple little dimples in your elbow there. That's what you're making. You're going to make a couple stitches on your elbow and come back to the inside of your elbow. Just about two stitches. And give it a little pull for some definition. And take that tail and make a little knot since it's there. Now we're going to head up to the wrist area, and we're going to follow that seam right on the inside of the arm there. Tiny little stitches on the outside, bigger stitch on the inside. We're almost done for one side. You're going to go in under the thumb area and out on the other side of the wrist. Make a little stitch and come back through. You're going to tighten it a little bit to give it some definition and go back through again. A couple more times until you like it. Here I'm knotting it off. To hide your thread, you're going to, after you've given it a few knots, I'm not sure if you've ever done this while you're sewing, you're going to knot it on one side and then you're going to go all the way through. And you don't need to knot the last one. That's where you just cut it because it's already knotted on the other end. Now I'm rethreading the long tails that I had. Well, that was a long little tail on the inside elbow of a earlier trim that I did. So I knotted it and pulled it through. So there's no knots showing on the outside. And here's the tail. I'm going to rethread. I'm going to go back through a couple times and give it a couple more little knots, and then I'm going to pull it through and trim it off on the opposite side. This is hiding your starter thread. There we go. So one side is done. Just want to give you a little, show you the difference on both sides here. See the definition on the elbows and the wrists, kind of makes the wrists pull in a little bit and give it some definition. That's what the back side looks like compared to the other side. And little knees. So Now we're going to show you how to do the magnetic hands. And this is quite easy. What I do is I have some little fabric that I used on my serger just to make some little open squares. And they're little pouches to put a magnet inside, and then I normally take that to my machine and sew up the edges, and here's one that's finished. Now that magnet is inside a little pouch, and you kind of want to do this especially because it's just extra padding. When a magnet is pulling on another magnet through fabric, you want a little padding of some extra fabric there just to make the fabric a little bit stronger from the pull sensation. And you can stitch that little square so that it doesn't move anywhere, but I kind of like the option of moving it if I need to. Say I want that magnet further up towards the fingers, then you can kind of maneuver and pull that little pouch wherever you want. And you can decide to have it in both hands or just one hand just to hold the magnetic pacifier, or if you want it in both hands where they can clasp their hands, palms together. You could even put it in the feet where the palm is touching and holding the foot. You can add as many magnets as you wanted to, but just keep in mind magnets need to be away from children and people with pacemakers.